Weird. That is.
Yeah, just we'll call the meeting to order, for Thursday, September the 7th, 2017. The first item for consideration is approval of the minutes for August 31st, 2017.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the minutes as written for August 31st, 2017.
Second.
Second, thank you. Any comments from other members, committee members? Having none, all those in favor signify by aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. The next item is interactive committee discussion. If it's okay, in agreement with the committee, if the committee is in agreement, I would suggest that our interactive discussion begin with looking at the updated charter that our staff has put together for us, which included our comments up until that day. Is that acceptable? Let's take this. Okay, then after we go through this, then we'll just go around the table and see what we think would come in as time goes on. What I will outline, I will use to start on page 1. If there's comments about page 1, we'll take those comments now.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, before you get started in that, we need to put on the record that our attorney has the special school board meeting and can't be here. If we'll just vocalize that for the record.
Okay, we'd like to announce that our attorney has a conflict, can't be with us. And just adding to that, after tonight's meeting, we'll see how the meeting goes and how we feel at the end of the meeting. Unless something comes up that I'm not aware of, we're going to be in the position to turn this over to the attorney for legal sufficiency. And if there is any changes to the real meat of the document, as duties, responsibilities, and all those various things with the flow chart and the like, then Teresa can get in contact with us and call a special meeting to hash out any changes that the attorney would like for us to consider. Committee in agreement with that? Okay. All right, page 2. I have a comment to make. That's where we started with the mayor's suggestions. He had 3 comments, and that's one of his. They don't necessarily follow 1, 2, or 3, but item 2 is one of the mayor's comments that we all received in the minutes, and also from Teresa from staff. Let me just read the first one of that. Item number 2, in a time of public danger or officially declared state of emergency, the mayor shall take command of the police, maintain order, and enforce the law. That's the duties that the mayor has at this time, and that's a good place to go, because pretty well all cities, the mayor takes on that responsibility. Anybody have any objection to the first?
I'm in agreement with that.
Okay.
So this is not a change?
It's an addition to.
Oh, okay.
It is just an addition
Yeah.
to.
Okay.
Previously, it stated that
Yes.
under the approval of the city council,
Oh,
which
we had to
means
go
you would
that
have
way.
to have a special meeting called prior to that. So,
That's good.
it's just cutting out
Right.
that.
That's good.
Okay, page 3, item 3 at the top. The mayor to preside over all meetings of the city council and with authority to participate in discussions, but without power to vote.
The one thing I would like to make note of this is as it's currently written, or as I currently read it, he is not a tiebreaker, at all.
No, that's correct.
He cannot be a tiebreaker.
This is sunshine.
No vote, nothing. Okay, any comment about?
So he won't be able to vote.
He won't be able to
He's
split.
split.
Yes,
Okay.
there's no voting.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And the last addition is item 9. The mayor pro tem shall be chosen by and from the members of the council to serve in the event of the mayor's absence. The mayor pro tem shall retain all voting privileges of an elected member of the city council. And what I failed to see in the document as I looked through was the term. So I have added that for discussion. And if this would be the appropriate place to do that, or it would be when in the location where the city council selects the person to serve as pro tem, that it would be in that section would designate the time, whether it would be a 1-year or a 2-year term for pro tem. It's in a 4-year term, each one of them gets served as mayor pro tem, if you go with 1 year. Because the mayor's, over the years I've been here, we haven't had a mayor miss a meeting only a few times in that whole period of time. So, Teresa, if you find the proper location, if it would specify it here or over where the city council in their duties, authority and duties section, to add it in there, of the term of the pro tem.
I think it'd be appropriate here.
Well, it's fine with me, I make my note at that location. Good evening, Paul. Thanks for coming out. Good to see you now.
I can put forth that most of the definitions for pro tem we researched was for a 1-year period.
And I think that would be fine. I think
Yeah.
that would be pleasing to the council. And each one of them for their tenure over a 4-year period.
And that will be added at this point.
Wherever it's most appropriate.
Oh, okay.
I just put it in there because I didn't see it anywhere in the,
This is covering the mayor. I would say that would probably want to fall under
the council.
council
Yeah.
segment.
Because we do make a note of that in that location.
Got it.
Whichever is the most appropriate.
Under city council powers and duties, it would have its own bullet
I agree.
with the allocated time block of 1 year.
Any other discussion about page 3? Moving to page 4, I didn't see anything that was mentioned there. And then at page 6, at the bottom of page 6, where we've got the red writing there, and that might be the location to be added into that paragraph. And I noted that in my notes, appointment mayor pro tem, term of office.
Yeah, because in the current way it's going to be written, paragraph E is not applicable.
Yeah, the reason that it's in red is because
I read that.
from what we were understanding last time, we're gonna remove that whole paragraph. So I'm just wanting to make sure that I understand it correctly, that you are removing the, president and vice president paragraph there. Just to make sure that I understood exactly what you wanted it done.
Correct, and in place of that paragraph would be
We
the
would have-
verbiage pertaining to the pro temp and.
Right.
Let's have a show of hands, all those in consensus, favor? Okay, so Barbara. We move over to page 7. We get on appointing city officials. We've got the highlighted section there. And I think Teresa's provided us a updated manual document or block diagram of chain of command, which
I give you two, because, the notes and the verbal, it sort of left a little question as to what was finally decided. We have one that shows the city manager with, the city clerk actually falling under the city manager but appointed by the council. And in the other terminology, it is the, city manager and the city clerk, whereas the council will select a city manager, they will select a city clerk. The city manager will have under him the fire, police, public services, parks and rec, growth management, public library, human resources, the finance department, and the utility department. And however, then the city clerk falls under the council and would not have any responsibility for being under the city manager.
I think, Josh, you kind of led that,
That's-
discussion.
Yeah, that's kind of what we decided last week. I was thinking about it, yeah, that's where we were at last week, was on the city
Yeah,
clerk.
and I think the reason for that was, collusion,
Right.
Correct.
oversight, and that's what this whole document is about, oversight and
Mhm.
the possibility of, ensuring that we have the oversight of all departments. Okay,
So
so.
We also did not clarify, the council will appoint the city clerk and the city attorney. Are all other officers and employees selected by the city managers? Or is the officers or department heads, or whatever terminology you're gonna use for that, will be selected by the city manager? And then, as it is now, the department head actually hires the employees.
I-
So,
If we'll go to, city manager on the next page, if you'll move forward to that, on the last, item, J there, not included in the list of hiring of personnel. And I put my question, and it relates to what Teresa's got here, question if the department head recommends, let the department head recommend new employees to the department with the, manager's confirmation.
There, exactly, yes.
Each department head has taken the time to, interview their employee, and then that department head will pass it on and meet with the city manager and have them confirm that.
Because it's the city manager's decision, but he certainly can delegate to the
Yes.
department heads.
It allows a second look at that resume,
That's
and
right.
a second set of checks and balances to ensure that the proper person's being put in the spot.
If that was my note, that's just where I have to include that.
and in several of the places, of the couple of ones that we had boiled down to, they actually, give the authority to the department head, and, they're given the authority by the city manager in order to do that.
I think if the city manager wants to delegate that and let that department head make the final decision, he's approved it. He's already approved that position.
Now, would he ultimately be responsible, the city manager, if something happens that the employee does not work out?
They don't get fired.
I know, who will do that?
The city
The
manager,
The city manager with HR.
HR, and the department head.
Okay.
Now, is there a different, I'm just looking at this, appointed versus employed. This paragraph that is in yellow, it goes into, it covers both when the basis of the article is appointed office officials. So would the appointed officials be the department heads? Would there need to be a separate bullet then under the city manager as for the confirmation piece? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's what I believe is, that the department head would, interview the person and select the interview, then pass it on to the, manager to make the final decision. Sign off on what his department head has done.
In some avenues, they used an employment committee, which was made up of the, that would be acting in this term as the manager. I don't think they called it that, but that was the manager, and then the immediate supervisor, which is the middle management, which is your department head, and an HR person. So that it's a group effort there in order to interview and make the deciding factor.
Personally, I think we're diving too deep in the weeds. I would just as soon let the city manager and the department heads and HR work out those processes all on their own and not worry about it in the charter.
I agree with you, but, maybe that's one of those things that need to do by the ordinance. That we've had the long discussion, and we've cut this thing very
City
down.
or policy,
Pretty well.
Policy.
No need to
I don't-
add this back into it. So
Just once it's-
that's what we-
Then we need to state that we need this shall be taken care of by ordinance.
Yeah, because otherwise it's bound by.
Otherwise, we
this
got to
document.
have something, got unanswered questions there. So if you're going to handle it in the future by ordinance, then that's what we shall state there. And if you drop down to the next one, which is the city clerk, a lot of that chapter is routine duties, which really, a lot of that should be handled by.
I'm just curious,
nurse.
or like, for you as an employee, I'm sure that there's standard policies and procedures in place. Those can't all be ordinances, right?
No, they're policy.
Right.
Actually, your policies and procedures are adopted. They are brought
As a
forward.
bundle.
No, as you have a policy or procedure. We have a master book, and as long as there was an active administrative services, those policies were updated and kept very current. They are adopted. Keep in mind, when our city was young, resolution and an ordinance was viewed as about the same thing, whereas a resolution technically handles internal episodes, matters of business for the internal business, and your ordinances really affect people that are in your general public. So if you're going to have a policy that's going to affect the general public, you need to pass that by ordinance. If you're going to pass a policy that's going to affect the internal workings of the city, you can do that by resolution. So your policies and procedure book is mandated in resolutions and ordinances that have been brought before the board and actually passed, so that they can become a legal document. What's happened in the past few, recent history is they have made up policies and procedures that are no more than typing on a paper, because it hasn't been passed, it hasn't been encompassed into the library of the city. So the validity of what they're deciding, it falls into practice. So if you want something in here to be determined by future documentation, if you wish to use that terminology, we can just add that in there, and it will be an amendment to the charter or a policy and procedure in order to help facilitate the charter.
The policy and procedure would be most appropriate, because we don't want to go back to the charter.
We just
That's
need
what
to-
we're trying to do is
We
stay
need
away
to
from
keep
it.
this charter as macroscopic as
Yeah.
possible and not get into the.
Whichever way that is most appropriate for the city conducting business, where it's a policy, procedure, or, good evening. So if we're all in agreement with that, it would be adopted by something other than the charter.
Yes.
Not the city.
There will be situations come up that the charter cannot.
Isn't gonna fit.
Yeah.
I have a question on the appointed city duties. They got the city council shall appoint the city clerk and the city attorney. Shouldn't the city manager be in there also?
But they do that, it's just a separate, it's on a separate line, that the city council, it will hire.
Okay, I see what you're saying there, because it's the three that are by the.
Okay, let's, city manager. If you look at city manager on page,
Mhm.
8, there shall be a city manager who shall be appointed or dismissed by the city council. by the
Absolutely,
majority
you got
vote.
city clerk also, you got city attorney also.
That's correct.
So
Would this paragraph
so it should
just
that
be,
paragraph should say city clerks, city manager, and city attorney.
would this paragraph be removed? And those blurbs are already in there, since the remainder of the paragraph is going to be done through resolution or ordinance?
Nope.
That's the reason the yellow paragraph was inserted there, is to ask the question. Is there something you want there, or does it go immediately into section 501 city clerk?
I think I agree with what Mrs. McKinney is saying. This first paragraph, let's have it just say, the city council shall appoint the city clerk, the city attorney, and the city manager, all other employees, and then we can delete, on page 8, we can delete that most of that paragraph, section 5.02, because it now becomes redundant. And that ties, all those appointed by the city council are now in one spot in the document.
And are you in agreement to using the word appointed?
I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so, all those in agreement, with Josh Stakeland that, 502 city manager, that first paragraph is deleted and replaced by the other previous paragraph that was included? All those consensus on it? Okay,
And then that would just change the wording to section 5.2, it would start just basically,
it start.
It
the
just starts
city
there.
manager shall.
Right.
In 5.01 was, there are duties and responsibilities there that are listed out, over and above really it goes into the everyday duties. So is for the city clerk and the city manager, do you want that shortened or abbreviated in some way as to, list that the duties would be set out in, other documentation, list,
So the city clerk's duties would be assigned by an ordinance?
yeah, right here you have the charter stating that the city clerk will prepare an agenda to all meetings.
Let me back up real quick,
So,
before I get to that. Would you be okay with rearranging the order of these? I'd like city manager to be section 5.01, city attorney to be 5.02, and city clerk to be 5.03.
Good idea. Because you could.
Order of precedence.
Right. Could we handle that?
you,
Okay, Josh, restate that, then we'll get a consensus.
I'd like to rearrange the order. Section 5.01 would be describe the city manager. Section 5.02 would describe the city attorney. And section 5.03 would describe the city clerk.
I agree.
I second
And,
that.
and it follows order of authority, if you will. That's fine.
and then your, also you're gonna continue with 5.04 being departments, and 5.05 being city boards and commissions,
I'm fine with that.
excuse me, yeah.
Okay, all those, in agreement with Josh's, suggestion that we change the order?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have a consensus there. And I try to use this as fast a mover than taking a vote, because if we take the vote on this and not a consensus, we got to go back to a different procedure, so consensus works fine in this application.
I'm just curious how this would work if, since we've decided to take the finance away from the city clerk, which is good and necessary. How would she retain the authority to act as a signature on checks and financial documents? That would fall to the CFO of the finance department then. I don't understand how she could actually, because we've said she shouldn't be in charge of finances anymore.
She's still gonna have the ability to review, because her and the city, her and him, and the city manager, I believe it, we said that they would review the financial statements together and then final sign off, if I remember that correctly.
Yes, that's right. The city manager and the city clerk.
So the finance and everything is separate, and then it funnels to for the review process, to then the city manager and the city clerk for review, countersign, and approval.
Restate your position, Josh, please.
I don't have a position. I'm perplexed.
Okay.
I thought about that a bit myself.
What are your thoughts?
Well, because in all of those policies, there's gotta be some kind of state policy or federal policy that says what you sign off. So, I can only sign off on this based off the state or whatever those policies are. Whatever the state says, I can sign off on. Even the dollar amount, sometimes it even has to be dollar amounts. It's not just, you can sign off on any and everything just because somebody presents it before you.
Well, way it works today, correct, Teresa, correct me if I'm wrong. The employees in the clerk's department, others do all the checks, do all the legwork. The clerk sits in the office, and her signature is most of the time electronically. What she's really involved in is if they have a problem in one of those areas, and the financial lady is the head guru over the money, if you will.
But they're following somebody's,
Statutory
right,
limit.
some
Right.
guidelines themselves, right?
That's correct,
Yeah.
but they do that like where they take in all the accounts receivable. Is several offices down there that takes in a check from licenses. There's one that takes in the water bill and deposits in light, and they file that, the clerk, it goes to the clerk, and she is the one that oversees that function.
Mr. Chairman, they would need to know that the city clerk, is sort of resembles a department head for your finance department and your utility department. She's not technically a department head, but she sort of functions as their department head for the finance department and the utility department.
Correct.
If that helps put into perspective what all she has to do.
But we've decided to take that away from her and put that under the purview of the city manager, in an effort to keep the city government unified.
Because of the fact that she no longer will be an elected official with her own
So
statutory.
who does the audit on?
The auditor does the audit.
The auditor.
We pay a big sum for the auditor to keep up with it.
A lot of other cities are moving away from having a city clerk, and they have, they'll have a CFO who falls underneath the city manager, and understand the argument that there could be collusion. The city manager and the CFO sign the financial statements together, and if the city council or the mayor doesn't like what they see, they open up an investigation and say, time out, what's going on? Or sheriff's departments, a lot of times in the sheriff's department, it's the under sheriff who's not elected, and the CFO who signs stuff, and then if the sheriff doesn't like what he's going on, he opens an investigation and fires or arrests them for malfeasance. So.
Or in Charlie Morris's, the FBI did it.
If it's really bad, the FBI gets involved.
Lest we forget.
And according to our charter, the way we got it, we have two departments that
Yeah.
has that capacity. That's the mayor and the city clerk. So hopefully, one of those will be in tune with any wrongdoing that's.
It's just a city clerk issue. It's adding an interesting level of level of complexity to what we're doing.
You should also know that, there is a finance director.
Yes.
So that is an additional person that, and the finance director is the one that does most of the financial
Checks on her.
stuff. And although she doesn't, I'm not sure she signed the check. She doesn't sign a check.
Oh, Gina doesn't sign
Gina
checks?
doesn't sign a
Oh,
check.
I thought her
She
signature
handles
was somewhere.
she handles all the bookkeeping and
Bookkeeping.
things like that, and she handles the bookkeepers that are like the accounts payable and the payroll clerk and, the accounts receivable. So there's actually a department, there's actually a director also, so I didn't know if y'all knew that or not.
She's like a controller.
Yeah, she's like a controller.
Okay, we get past, mine.
Let's see what Fort Walton's doing with theirs.
Any, comments, page 9? Page 10?
And it just breaks out the difference in the departments.
Okay,
Have you got to page 10?
just now.
Okay, you'll notice that 6.04 election procedures have been edited as requested, and this was upon discussion with, Mr. Lux, and we have retained the canvassing board, because that is unique to Crestview, and then just the statement that the general elections will be under their venue, and that is acceptable to him.
Okay. Any other comments, relating to, the document? Any other comments? Okay, as we move forward with our, individual discussion, related to that. if
I
you-
do have one.
Okay.
On 6.07, are the council precincts, I see all this in blue. This is what we're waiting for guidance from the attorney?
We're awaiting, legal on that.
Okay, and those will all shift over into articles then?
They'll either shift over or else they will be, if we can streamline them, they'll be streamlined. And if they must remain, they will remain. But that will take legal advice.
Okay, thank you. If it'll be okay with the committee, I will like to make just a few comments as it relates to the interactive committee discussion. If the committee doesn't have any problem with that, I would start out by summarizing our prior meetings and our guests who have took the time to come out and participate in this effort of the Charter Committee. The first one being Paul Lux. He gave us some suggestions which we have followed. Also, Graham Fountain, who's sitting over there, thank for his comments in these discussions, is a shorter title. And we've eliminated a lot of small stuff that we have asked to be adopted by ordinance, that we, if changes can be made by ordinance, that is good. The solid stuff is in the charter. Mr. Lux talked about election procedures and the like, which he's has to follow Florida statutes relating to that, and he oversees the Crestview election when that takes place also. And second meeting, we had Jack Dorman come in, and Jack spoke highly of the city manager form of government as being the most efficient. And I appreciate his comments because he is our city consultant as it relates to growth management issues and the like, and I regard his comments very highly. And he also made the comment that the manager would be the person of contact. As Mr. Ronnie made a comment earlier, make that comment again, if you will, to the board and those in attendance about people having difficulty having the contact person with the city, unable to make that. meet who was really the contact person?
Right now, a lot of citizens, business owners, have a difficult time figuring out who exactly to contact during a time of need. And as the mayor pointed out in the last meeting where he spoke, he explained that they contact him, even though it may not be within his purview of duties. He has to try and establish or fix the issue, which takes away from his daily duties and his scope.
So that would be this person, if this effort passes, the charter issue. The next speaker, Dr. Getch, he gave us a good, strong presentation. I enjoyed that very much. And he made the comment that still sticks real good, that a strong mayor form of government is more democratic, but the city manager form of government is the most efficient. And in our case right now, we're looking for efficiency and oversight. And we tried to load this document up with those things and condense it down and give them more authority back to our local government and not have to go through a charter change just to correct some of these smaller laws that affect our city. And also, Dr. Getch made the suggestion of if we could, when we do the application process, go for a younger, Florida experienced person, because laws of the state of Florida are very complicated. Like the comprehensive plan, just one document is this thick, and that's just a piece of the pie. So if and when this time comes, the advertising, hopefully the council will follow that procedure and recommendation by the expert. Graham also touched on that in one of our meetings that supports a younger person, not one's near retirement. Get a younger person that is motivated to work hard and do a good job and show that he's got the stuff. So, of course, the city council is going to make that decision in the end. But we've heard that from more than one person in this meeting, that would be the type of person that they would be most interested in hiring for the city. And Graham, again, he made some comments earlier, is shorter and better charter, and we have really gleaned this document down. I don't know if we, in comparison with Destin and Fort Walton, are about the same number of pages, but we have removed several pages from that charter, from the original document. Okay, those are my comments as it relates to the interaction. We just go around the table. Anyone have any comments?
I will keep this fairly short and sweet, since a lot of what he said, I'm not going to reiterate that, but we've made some great, in my eyes, adjustments. Like you mentioned, though, the ultimate individuals that are going to be making, in the Army, as they say, making the sausage, is going to be the city council, though. So I think that we have gotten a great document that will at least give them the ability to take it from this point. I see us being still there, where our committee is still standing, and if they come back with more requests, specific requests, we could always come back together on a special occasion basis or as requested. I personally think that we do have, pending the review, the right from the city legal, we're ready to submit to the city council our recommendations.
I concur.
I think what we are doing and what we have to keep in mind is that a citizen needs to be able to pick this up and know who to contact, what to do, and what's going on, rather than the way it is right now. As the mayor pointed out, people's garbage is not picked up. They call him because that's, he's the mayor. this will clarify for the citizen. And that's of utmost importance.
It's there for them if they wish to
Yeah.
look at it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's not left up to somebody's opinion, well, maybe you ought to contact,
Waste management.
go to this, go to this person.
Thank you.
I agree. This is a definite improvement, in comparison to the, current city charter, which is archaic, based on nineteen fifties thinking. And, besides that, I've really enjoyed getting to know each of you and working with you.
Good.
Thank
You
you,
want
Rob.
to say anything?
Okay, yeah, it's been a pleasure to be appointed on this board. I think, it's just my own opinion, in most cases, as long as there's ever gonna be a mayor, people are gonna think that he's the number one guy.
Yeah.
You can have a document all you want to, but no matter where you go, you're always gonna think that he's the guy you gotta go to for some, your complaints and things like that, but, I'm sure he'll probably still hear that. Yeah, this is hopefully a living, breathing document that will even be improved further, in the later years, so, those are my comments.
Thank you. Ms. McKinney?
Well, I mean, I concur with everything everybody's saying. I believe that, this is a step in the right direction for the city. And, I believe if the city council take, our, document and take, notes and everything, I believe and make a decision based on what we're saying. I believe that they'll see nothing but good things happen for the city. They adopt this.
Thank you very much. Ms. Simmons?
Let's get it to the voters.
That's good.
I do have one alibi. One alibi. The way we have it, we have several, multiple adjustments. I would like to know if there's a consensus that we, recommend that they break this up into multiple bites, like the Fort Walton Beach most recently did, instead of trying to cram it into one, as Mr. Lutz stated, short paragraph that can be quite confusing.
If our attorney, can work that out, I don't know how we can do it, if we're going with the strong, with the city manager initially, with that form of government, I don't, if they can figure out a way to break it down into more than one issue, that would be good. I don't know what it would be.
Correct. I just think if we make the recommendation with this document to the city council, that we recommend it being in multiple pieces, such as the city clerk piece, the city manager piece, some of the other, items that would need to be adopted by ordinance, or by charter.
I just wanna add one thing to what Mrs. Simmons said, about getting it to the voters. Would remind each of us, let's not consider our work today done. Let's go out and be champions in our communities that we find ourselves in.
To support
Our
our
families,
effort.
churches, because this does have to be, voted on. And if each one of us, talks to multiple people about it and encourages them to vote and support it, explains why they should support it, it has a much higher chance of, passing.
That's why I like, I feel, he mentioned the mayor a while ago, he was my fourth person. He proposed 3 recommendations as it related to the mayor's duties. And they have been included in this document that we're going to take action on in just a little bit, so we got the mayor pretty satisfied. We hate to lose his votes. We would like him to stay a team player and a part of this as it moves forward.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
do they have a preference for it being on a referendum or being a mail-out ballot?
I don't know, the, county has got and we'll discuss that, a mail-out, ballot, planning in the future. We haven't ever had one that I know of.
No, countywide.
That'd be making
It would depend on the timelines. Mr. Lux said it was gonna be, once it gets through the city council, which is still another hurdle in its way, it's still a 6 month, if I correct me if I'm wrong, 6 month to actually get everything written properly to get the referendums on a ballot. So depending on when that all happens, it could either align or not align.
If we're packaging it as a part of our recommendation to the city council, my recommendation would be a mail-out ballot. And there is a cost there, about $1 a voter, so roughly $14,000 for city of Crestview. But the reason I would suggest that we do a mail-out ballot is the conversation and the momentum for city manager is currently on our side. If we drag that out into March of next year, that momentum is going to dissipate.
Very,
Can I interject the opinion by our company that was here, that was actually presented themselves, but was actually, it wasn't taken up in order to have them facilitate their survey or anything. Their recommendation, the percentage of success in reaching the voters with a mail-out ballot was extremely rated, much to its advantage, in order to utilize that method rather than your, the regular referendum, whereas the rate or percentage of people that perform that action is relatively low. Ours has been in less than 10%.
It physically go to polls, yeah.
Yeah, it physically goes to the
You
polls.
touch more people with the mail, and if they're interested, they're gonna send it back, and if they're not, they'll throw the garbage, but most of the people who are interested are mailing in.
Yeah, their guesstimate of it was anywhere from 46 to 63%.
okay, if you will, let's just show a consensus. Mail out, should raise your hand, versus, the, personal voting. I'll support that, if
Anything.
the record, or if the statistics show that you get a better turnout. Because when we send this to the sausage mill, the city council, we might get back hamburger, or we might get back bologna, we don't know what's gonna happen.
We're giving them filet.
Right. It'll be lean, that's one good thing we still gotta be lean.
At the end of the day, a lot of people within the citizens within the community have a very scheduled day. If I didn't have alarms going off with where I had to be, when I had to be, last thing I would remember is where I was supposed to be. So, and that's something else that happens with the voting. So I do think that we are, now, Mr. Lux did say that he historically hadn't seen a large gain within it, but due to the more persistence and the viewership of this current topic, that could be a historical change.
So we'll see on that. Our consensus is, yes, sir.
I was gonna ask, what is the significance of these two sheets?
The hierarchy one, indicated the city manager and whereas the clerk was actually under the city manager
Well,
and under
have we
the
made that
direction,
decision?
even
Yes,
though
sir. Well,
that's the city manager and the city, it's just to visualize it. And
Oh,
this
okay.
one is the city manager, city clerk, whereas the city manager and the city clerk are on equal tidings.
Okay, I thought you were bringing up something else too.
No, that block
No,
will
it's
not
just that.
be in the chart, that won't be in the chart, we'll provide it. If you will, before we, make our motion, we'll accept the, input from, our audience. Yes, sir.
Okay. I think I made every
Would you,
meeting.
identify yourself, please?
Stephen Strong.
Thank you.
I've been here 26.5 years. I'm a transplant. Like, at least one of you up there in the council is. I know for a fact he's a transplant. I know about the rest of you. I've made every one of these meetings. since the beginning, except for one, my bad, family get-together. I see a diverse group, which is good, a lot of different ideals. I want to thank you for the time and effort you guys and gals have put into this. City staff, same thing, overtime, etc. You've done your thing. For our wonderful county commissioner who's been here to give a little insight every so often. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
But back to the group in question, I think you've done a good job. You've had your differences, which is why there's 7 of you up there. Yeah, I want to thank you personally for stepping up to the plate when asked. Thank you.
Thank you, we appreciate your comments, sir. Any other comments from the audience? Paul?
Paul Lowry, I'm glad we're moving in this direction. I've done a lot of the research myself on the best form of government. This is the most widely sought after form of government with council manager form. And so I've had a chance to do a lot of that research myself, and I am so glad that you guys are coming up with this recommendation. I hope that the council runs with it, and we get this in front of the voters, and it's gonna be education, education, education. That's why it failed the last time. There were some other issues that came up that why it failed last time. But it wasn't out there for the public to even think about and discuss and have an idea of why it was gonna even be on the ballot.
It failed before it went to the ballot.
It did, it absolutely did, it did, and so I am very happy that this is going forth. And to caveat on the idea of a young person to maybe be this manager, you know, I think about what hits me is, I'm sure everybody's seen the Febreze commercials where folks say, okay, this is what you think and you smell, but this is what everybody else smells, and it really stinks. And so someone from Crestview or in the immediate vicinity that knows Crestview, those things aren't gonna hit them as much as someone from outside. I would love to see somebody that doesn't even know Crestview exists, that gets hired for the position, that can come in and see it from a totally different set of eyes.
And I would like that too. I won't, if I get a chance, I'll recommend it to the city council. But that's what Graham, he really stressed that point. If you don't mind repeating that, Graham.
Well, I just said that the city managers that do well, and we have some in our county. I mean, you've got one in Niceville, Lanny, that started and been there for many, many, many years, but most of the ones that do well and aggressive and take care of the issues are ones that still have a high level of education at a master's degree level. They have several years, but they're still young enough. They're not in their RAD, I call it retired active duty, and they're not coming here to work the last 5 or 6 years and then walk out on you. They're there, and hopefully, to, like you say, new smells, new sights, new sounds, and people that maybe have been around some other places to see how, the best thing you can do is go to other cities and counties and states and see that there are other ways of doing business than the way we've done it here. And I'm one of the ones, I grew up here, even though I think I'm pretty open-minded to change. And I know I am, but that kind of person is really what you kind of want to look for to make some big changes. And they got to have some courage. And I mean to stand up and tell the city council, this is the changes we need to make, and I'm willing to make the changes. I'm not gonna make all the employees happy, but I will be fair and I'll be judicious, but we've got to move this city in the right direction, and they gotta have a little bit of moxie.
And somebody who does know somebody else something here in town.
Well, that's it. And he hit the nail on the head in the past 2 times that we remembered. You know, there was always somebody vying for the job, and they were telling everybody we wanted this one for the job, and they were already trying to predetermine who it was before we ever had it. And that's why a lot of my friends said, heck no, we're not voting for it.
Yeah.
And we all know the history. I don't have to get into all that.
Okay.
But so you're right on target. Very, very good comments.
Yes. Anyone else in the audience wishing to make a comment? Hearing none, okay.
Could I make just a couple, these are just some observations, because I had a conflict at your last meeting and I couldn't come. And I think, first of all, let me say, I think it's a very good product, and I think y'all get very concise and getting where you can roll with the nuances of state statutes and ordinances and let them govern instead of trying to put everything under the sun in a charter. Because y'all know how hard it is to change a charter. That's why cities that have charters this thick can't ever do business, because it's too hard. But I did have just 2 or 3 little minor things, and y'all may have discussed this already, so I may be beating a horse that y'all already beat, but on page 2, when you start getting, okay, we're under the mayor and, city council, you mentioned the thing about during emergencies. Most cities, if they don't have a paid emergency management director, as we do, they clearly designate the mayor or somebody, the city manager, or somebody to actually be the emergency management director, because it's not just the police. They need to control and coordinate fire, police, work with our emergency management, your public works. Everything needs to have one boss when there is a declared emergency, which the mayor normally declares. So I would just suggest that if y'all want him to be your emergency management person, to put that in here, don't just say.
We've got a corrected version of that. The mayor was here last week.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't in this version. Okay, so y'all may have already done all this.
Yes, sir. We did 3 things for the mayor. We included, those into this document.
Okay.
He was at our last meeting, made his presentation, and
Okay.
he didn't present them at the.
Yeah, that was one I had a conflict. And then the other one is, I want to make sure that y'all weren't setting up an inherent conflict, and I know y'all been back and forth on the clerk, but on page 6 and 7, now y'all designated the mayor as the meeting moderator, and traditionally, and like in Tallahassee and Fort Walton, those places, if you have a mayor that is gonna be running the meetings, that way you got all 5 councilmen able to make motions and do everything they normally do. Some places don't have any presidents or vice presidents, they only have an elected mayor pro tem in there. But, having said that, if you look at the last line on page 7, under the city council and the mayor, the president, vice president, then you go to say that they can assign any duties they want to him by ordinance, which can pose an inherent conflict, a charter conflict that may have to be litigated, because if the charter says the mayor's gonna run the meeting, they may wind up saying, oh no, we wanna run the meeting and we want our president to run the meeting, and you're gonna have an automatic conflict there. So I would not feel comfortable with that last line. I think y'all need to decide, I don't even know why you need the president and vice president
Oh, we
council.
deleted
We
it.
eliminated.
Oh, okay, all right, well, y'all, like I said, y'all are ahead of me, okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
And y'all, that's the only, that's really the only thing I saw that I had questions about. Other than, you may wanna also list on the city clerk, did you just mention, when you say financial, are you saying also like they're the city cashier, to take payments for your water bill? You said water utilities, but they don't run utilities. They only take care of the payment.
It's the payments, it's the
Okay.
utility
Okay,
department.
a lot of cities say either they supervise the comptroller if they're gonna have it, or they are the chief, or the cashier for the city, whatever. But, a lot of these city clerks are going bye-bye. Most cities don't have them anymore, so I might have a different thought if I was sitting here where y'all were sitting about whether we needed it in the first place. And anytime you have 2 of them that are direct appoints of the commission or the council, you could have conflicts between them and the manager. So, but if the thing is, if everybody thinks we still need to have a city clerk, then, so be it. The city council can deal with it, but, that's just a preference thing. But I think the rest of it here looks like this is a great document, and boy, y'all have got it concise.
We took your advice.
So,
and-
no, I think y'all did very well with it, actually. It sounds like it was a lot easier actually this time for you than in past years.
Yes, sir.
I do think Mr. Fountain did make a statement. He is looking, I believe, at the one we just went through, and in here it does take command of the police. The way he explained is it needs to be worded more holistic. He takes control of the police, fire,
All emergency
all
response.
emergency responders. So that would be a.
And if you say he's the appointed emergency management director, that's pretty assumed that he will have all that.
So that verbiage.
The city, Fort Walton actually has good language. Let me find where they say that.
And in reality, he and the city manager are gonna be tied to the hip on something like that
Yeah,
anyway.
and it goes on to say, maintain order and enforces the law.
The mayor shall be, because Fort Walton, they say the mayor shall be recognized as the head of the city government for all ceremonial purposes, going on, and by the governor for purposes of military law. In time of public danger or emergency, the mayor shall, if authorized, direct by vote of the city council, take command of the police. Okay, so we're similar, really similar.
Okay, so this,
So is
You
our,
think
our,
it's adequate-
is our
adequately-
verbiage strong enough in your opinion, or should it be more holistic? Because as it's currently written, it command of police maintain order and
I mean, I
enforce
think it
the
gets to
law.
most of it. I just, if you had a council or city manager that didn't work well with him, then they may say, oh, this just says that it's emergency, you got the police, but, you know, you're directing the fire and public works to go set up stuff for the evacuation. And it doesn't clearly say, because Florida statutes dictate city and counties have an emergency management director. Most cities that are small just don't pay one full-time, but they usually designate somebody as one.
So the
And I
mayor,
didn't see anywhere in there that anybody else was designated as the EM director.
so the mayor would assume the
Yes,
position
assume that
of the
during
director
a time of emergency.
during a time of
And it
emergency.
makes sense, because he's the one that declares it, so it would make sense. So, I mean, if you wanna tighten that up a little bit, I mean, it wouldn't be bad, but, you know, it's probably clear enough. I just, y'all might, you know, just give that some thought. The council might, they might say that, or the mayor might say that if he read that again. But as you said, the council may wanna amend some of the stuff a little bit as they go, and, you know, that.
we wanna give them something to do.
Something to do, yeah.
We wanna
Give them a little bit of
Do we
something.
really? What about,
We consider now the mayor is actually, our mayor is actually over the fire and police now.
Now.
So that has not been
An issue.
an issue.
Right.
But I do agree that to designate an emergency management director would be all-inclusive, and it may be the better way in order.
Well, you can get into issues, and I'll use not just the operations, when you start applying for state and pass-through and FEMA reimbursements,
Yes.
whoever your emergency management director is one that signs some things, and you have to be that title.
Mhm.
And, well, what we can do is change a period to a comma,
And
whatever,
and
and
put,
include
yeah.
that.
I just wrote something on the fly, do you mind if I read it to you? In the time of public danger or officially declared state of emergency, the mayor shall assume the role of emergency management director, taking command of the police and fire, maintaining order and enforcing the law.
I've been fine, perfect.
Excuse me,
Should it encompass the public
if I may,
services
I know I'm out of turn.
as that?
I do volunteer work with the
That's a
county
bunch.
EOC.
That's a bunch.
I strongly recommend you touch base with Mr. Randy McDaniel on the emergency management and how the reimbursement works.
Oh, okay, when we get to that point, thank you.
Yeah,
All right, okay. So,
Yeah, we're good at asking for
have
money.
you got the recommended?
I've been meeting with him all week.
Recommended, okay.
Read it one more
I was
time.
gonna say, Randy, we have
Yeah.
Randy on speed dial.
Yeah, yeah.
Read it one more time.
Sure. In the time of public danger or officially declared state of emergency, the mayor shall assume the role of emergency management director, taking command of the police and fire, maintaining order and enforcing the law.
That's fine.
Okay, we have a consensus on the, change for the duties of the mayor, and inform the mayor that we just gave him a little additional responsibility. And hope he and hope he agrees with it.
Well,
Okay,
that's what he's agreed that now.
He will.
okay.
I'm sure.
Thank you for your comments, girl.
Thank y'all, y'all done a good job.
Before we close this portion, any other comments from the audience again? And just, to keep them up, we'll just remind them of the importance of coordinating with the emergency management.
Okaloosa County Emergency Management.
We'll make a note of that, please. The comment.
We are actually, tonight and myself are actually representing this
I'm
sorry?
down with, we work with Randy down there, so.
Yeah, y'all got deals.
I work with him too. I run an NGO.
Mhm.
Okay. We are we at the point that we're ready for a motion to recommend, to transmit this document to the city council for their consideration.
I so move
I
that
second.
we recommend it. As,
We got that. Does that cover it in everybody's mind that we?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we utilize the document that we've prepared over the last 90 days and submit those findings to the city council for their review, pending the write-ups from the city attorney.
So it's in a little more depth.
That's fine.
You would like to make that motion?
We'll make that motion.
Okay, so that's a joint motion. Let's do it like that. We set our own rules, this committee.
Yeah.
We said that.
And you second
it?
I'll second that.
So we have a second, we have a joint motion, with a second, any discussion from the, committee? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. I enjoyed working with all of you. I hope I haven't been overbearing, but we have moved along, we're finished on schedule.
You did a good job,
Yeah.
and we appreciate your service to the city through the years.
All right. We stand.
And yours,
Oh,
and yours,
hold it, don't
and your.
adjourn yet.
Oh, okay.
We do appreciate what's taking place. As you know, one of our councilmen, will not be attending the, meeting on Monday. So they will